Hi there, this is Crystal, and today I'm working in my 2018 Highlights Traveler's Notebook. I am still way back in June, so you can find videos for all of the other posts in my channel. I'll be sure to link them below. This is the photo I have for June, and again, this is just kind of some personal highlights from the last year that I'm focusing on, one per month in this album, and this one is a photo of myself and a friend and colleague of mine. We presented at the American Library Association annual conference this year, which was kind of a big deal for us. So we had a poster presentation, so a friend of ours snapped this photo, and I just wanted to document that in this notebook. So to do that, I have pulled the book-bound kit from Featurecraft. This is the kit. It comes with this stamp as well, and I've just pulled a few things out that I think I might want to use. So I have a couple 4x6 cards and some 3x4 cards, and as I was kind of playing around, I decided that I wanted to alter these a little bit. So when you order the physical kit, you also get the digitals. So I decided to create a full page out of one of these cards. So I took the digital image of this 4x6 card and created a full Traveler's Notebook sized page, actually a little bit bigger, just to make it easy to get the edges straight. So I created that in Photoshop, and then I also printed out a couple of the other ones as well. I printed out this one in 3x4 instead of 4x6, and you can see I just printed this on I think it's 28-pound paper, so it's really just like a slightly heavier printer paper, and I didn't use photo settings, which is why the color is a little bit off. If I were to do it again, I would definitely use photo settings, but it doesn't bother me that they're just slightly off since I'm not going to have both of these side by side. So I'm going to leave it as is for today, but I will remember next time to make sure that I use photo settings. So instead of using these two, I printed the kind of Traveler's Notebook paper and this card in 3x4, and then I've also printed this one of the girl holding a stack of books. I printed that one as well because I'm pretty sure I want to fussy cut that out, and rather than cut it out of this heavy-duty cardstock that these cards come printed on, I think I'd rather just cut it out of a thinner paper, and then there won't be quite as much bulk in my notebook either. So I have these other cards from the kit as well, and then I've also pulled out just a regular library card from my stash, and this cork paper, it's a super old one from Note to Self by Echo Park. This is the other side, but this is the set I want to use. I thought I would have one side be kind of like a cork board, and the other side would be this book paper. So that's my plan so far. I also have a few other supplies. So I have my Ellie Studio dated stamp to add the date to this layout. And then I've also pulled a few other things. I have this little bit of washi tape from Big Picture. Actually, I ordered it from Studio Calico. These cork stars, which I thought I would use on the opposite side to echo this cork paper, some enamel dots and some puffy stickers, and then a puffy alpha from Citrus Twist to add my title. So that's what I have pulled out to start. I am just going to get going and see how things turn out. So I'm going to start by just trimming all of these things out. So I'm not going to make you watch the whole process of trimming all these papers, but I did want to show you this. So every Traveler's Notebook I've ever had has been slightly different in dimension. So even though it's a standard size, they tend to be within 1/4 of an inch or so from each other, but they do tend to be slightly different. So I just measured this one to make sure I was cutting the right size, and then used my paper trimmer to trim everything out. So I have all of the papers I'm going to use trimmed now. I still need to do the fussy cutting, but I will do that in just a minute. I'm just making sure that everything fits as it's supposed to. And I always do trim things just a tad bit bigger than the page itself so that I can make sure it goes all the way to the edge and I don't have to worry too much about getting it lined up straight. So I start by just adding some adhesive to one side and to the top and bottom. And then, for this one I actually just went ahead and added all of the adhesive, and then I'm going to lay it in the book and kind of close the page over it to get it lined up, and then just trim off the edges. So I'm having a little bit of trouble with my tape runner at the moment. I actually just ended up switching it out for a different one because it was giving me fits, but it's the scrapbook.com tape runner, and I haven't had too much trouble with the other one that I've used, but this one likes to get caught up on the side of the tape runner, so it gets sticky and then it doesn't want to roll. So I had a little bit of trouble with it, but I just decided to use it when I'm not taping, and that way you don't have to watch me struggle. So I have that side all glued down, and I'm just going to do the same thing with the other side now that I have a tape runner that actually works. So like I said, just adding the glue, and then I'll lay it in and kind of fold the page over to make sure that it's lined up. So I try and get one side kind of lined up, and then the other two, there's a little bit of give there, so I can make sure it's straight. And then I just trim off the excess, and then I'll be ready to start putting the page together. Okay, so now that I have all of that glued down, I can grab all of the other bits that I know I want to include on this page and start trying to figure out how I want to lay out this spread. So I know that I want my photo on the cork side, and my plan is just to layer some of these cards behind the photo, and then also on the other side to give myself somewhere to journal. But I'm not really sure how I want to do this, so while I'm thinking about it, I'm just going to go ahead and fussy cut this little girl. I don't make you watch that. It didn't take very long, but pretty boring to watch. So I did that off camera, and I really like the way that the girl looks on that that kind of bookshelf paper. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to put her over there. And then I thought that that polka dot card might be a good place to add my title. So I'm just checking to make sure that the letters will be legible on that kind of busy pattern, and they are, so I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. I know for sure that that's where I want my title to go. And then I know that my photo will go right above it, but it's looking a little off to me. I think it needs just a bit more contrast with that that cork board paper, since it's such a dark background on the photo. So in just a second, I'm going to go get some tissue paper to add behind the photo. But I do like how these two cards look up above it. And even though there's already another library card, journal card on the page, since it's a library conference, it seems pretty perfect to just include all the library things on this page. So I'm going to end up adding all 3 of those library cards to this one spread. Okay, so I have a little bit of tissue paper, and I'm just going to glue down my photo and give it just a tiny border of this somewhat transparent tissue paper. That's going to just help it differentiate it from that dark background just enough to make it more visible on the page, so it doesn't all just kind of blend in together. There's that one side of the photo that is pretty close in tone to that background paper, so this will help it stand out. So you can see it's a really thin border on the photo. It doesn't take much. It just adds a little bit of softness and a little bit of differentiation. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. I like how all of that is looking. Of course, because I didn't add glue around the whole thing, it's popping up on the edges, so I just need to go back and add a little bit more glue there so that it lays flat on the page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add my title. I know that I want to put ALA in these blue alpha stickers, these blue puffy alpha stickers, since it was the American Library Association conference, the ALA conference. I'm pretty sure I want to add something else below that. I'm just not entirely sure what yet. So I went to my stash to find some options for smaller letter stickers. I found a couple. I really love those teal ones, but they don't quite match that teal card on the other side. So I'm going to go with the pink ones. And at first I thought I would just put annual conference for ALA annual conference, but it's already starting to look really long to me, and I think this will take up the entire side if I try and spell that whole thing out. So I changed my mind and decide instead to put New Orleans in these letters, which that's where the conference was. It was the annual conference in New Orleans. So that's what I'm going to spell out instead. And it does take me a minute to get all of these tiny little letters lined up on this this ruler. This is the Thickers alignment tool, which is super, super helpful for lining up all of these tiny letters. I used to use a ruler, just a regular plastic ruler, but this is a lot thinner than any of the rulers that I have, and it makes it easier to pull the stickers off of the tool once I have everything where I want them to be. So you can see I just folded it up and it kept the top parts of those letters adhered, and I was able to get them lined up exactly where I want them. So now I'm going to work on the right side of this page, and I made a little boo-boo. I adhered this down without thinking about how narrow this page is, and she ended up hanging over the other side, which I definitely didn't want. So I had to peel her off and try and move her over a little bit, which wasn't too difficult. I was able to get that done without tearing anything, so that was good. And now I'm going to add the date for this spread, which is just the month and the year. That's what I've been doing throughout this album. I'm going to add it to the top of that blue library card, and I'm going to use some navy blue ink that kind of matches the color of those puffy alphas I used on the other side. I'm also going to go ahead and add my journaling to the card before I adhere it down. The Traveler's Notebook is getting a little bit bulky, so I know it'll be easier to write out my journaling if I do it before I adhere this card to the page. So there it is, all done. I didn't make you watch that whole process, but it's also not standing out from this background paper quite as much as I would like it to, so I decided to add this other library card behind it. So yes, that makes 3 library cards on this spread, and that's perfectly okay with me. Once again, I don't quite pay attention to where everything's going to line up, and the little girl I have a fussy cut does end up hanging off this side of the page just a little bit, but I make it work. I just give her little hair bun a crease and make it go around the fold of the page. So it works out. It's not a big deal. There you can see her little bun is folded over, so I just add some adhesive and stick it down really carefully. Since it's such a tiny little piece, it's not going to make a big deal when the notebook is folded. So there is that side pretty much done. Now it's just embellishing left to do. So I really want to include some of these little washi strips. They are the perfect colors to go along with this book-bound kit, and I think that they will add just the right amount of a splash of color across the page. So I'm just trying to figure out where exactly I want to put them. So I added a little red one to the bottom of the blue library card, and then I think I'm going to add the other half of that red one somewhere on this side. I tried it behind the photo, but I don't really like the way that looks. I'll end up adding it to the top of the pink library card, just like that. And then I'm going to add a few more strips because why not? This ends up being kind of a more is more kind of spread. So I just put all the things on, and it turns out just fine in the end. So I added that polka dot one above the card with the books on it, and then I'm going to add this green one to the top of the white library card. And I think, oh no, one more. I end up going with the yellow one above that blue library card, just so that they all have a little bit of washi up on top. It looks like it's kind of holding them on the page. Oh, I guess I went with the pink one, not the yellow one. My mistake. So I know I want to add some of these cork stars, but they gave me a fit. These are something I've recently purchased from Studio Calico, but they're not new. They're from an old kit, I believe, and they are pretty brittle. So they keep just falling apart each time I try and stick them on the page. There, another piece fell off. I'm able to kind of stick some of them back together and still use them, but some of them are just beyond repair. So That's okay. They were not expensive, so it's not a big deal, but it was a little bit frustrating. So as always, I'm just trying to put them in groups of 3 since that tends to be what works for me when I'm embellishing. I'm thinking of adding something else to the left side of this spread. I try some of these puffy stars, also from Studio Calico. These are Color Theory puffy stickers. I think it would echo those stars on the other side, but add a bit more color to this side of the page. But I don't end up liking the way that those look, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those off and try something else. I end up just going with the same cork stars on both sides. It was getting just a little bit too busy for me trying to add in yet another embellishment. So I just stick with the cork stars, and even though it's cork on cork, I think it still stands out enough for you to be able to see what it is, and it still makes sense on the page. So I add a few of those on this side of the layout, and then the last thing I do is add some of the stamps. So a few stamps from that same book bound kit, because I love these stamps. Even though it's already a busy page, I have to get some of these stamps on here. So I'm going to add, there's one that's a circle with a little heart in the center. I'm going to add that to the top of the spread where that pink card is, where there's a little bit of room. First, I'm going to add this phrase stamp that says "More Books" to the blue card above my journaling. Since there's that awkward gap between the date and my journaling, this will kind of fill that in, which is perfect because if you know anything about the annual conference for ALA, there are tons of free books for librarians. So we came home with basically a trunk full of books. So yeah, very fitting stamp for this spread. I'm also going to add one that says "Lost in the Stacks" right there below my title, and you can see I dropped the stamp, but luckily I didn't get it on my page. I am the messiest stamper, for real. Like, I don't know what my deal is. I cannot seem to stamp without getting it all over me, or all over my table, or all over my page, or all 3. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, I need to work on being less messy, or I don't know, paying more attention maybe. I don't know what the deal is. Anyway, I'm going to add this stamp to that pink card, and you can see I just opened up my notebook a bit and made it so that I could stamp that page directly on the table because, like I said, this is getting pretty bulky for a traveler's notebook, so it was easier to stamp it that way. And here are some close-up photos. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this spread, and hopefully I will see you back here soon. Take care. Bye-bye.